Hola Comadres, welcome to another episode of Comadreando podcast. I'm your host Marcy, and today we have a solo episode. I know they're rare and far between. However, I thought it was merited. I was trying to get a specialist for this topic in particular, but I was not able to find one that was available to speak with all of us. However, do not fret because I am backing up everything that we're going to be discussing today with scientific evidence and data. This episode is going to go live approximately 1 week after the 1 year anniversary. And as usual, you know where I'm recording. I'm recording in the Heights. And there's going to be a random car driving by or speeding by, or there's going to be a random motorcycle. So you know the deal. There might be some extraneous noises. I will try my best to avoid them. However, it should not be taking away from the content of the show. So as I was saying, this episode is going to air 1 week after the 1 year anniversary of our show. And I just wanted to thank you all again for your support and listenership. It has been a truly amazing experience. I have grown so much from the very first episodes that I recorded to now. And honestly, the best thing that I've taken away from making this show is that I've been able to help all of you in one way or another. Creating a community of people, parents, and loved ones of people with special needs that are coming together to help better their quality of life in one way or another, and to also support them in any way they can, which is amazing. You know, I continue to say this, and I will continue to say this until I'm blue in the face. And, you know, the goal of the podcast is to create a community, you know, something that I didn't have when I first had my child diagnosed. So, you know, I'm trying to change the narrative and educate as well as destigmatize special education and diagnoses for communities of color. With that being said, stick with me. We're in it for the long haul. Comadreando's not going anywhere, and I aspire to continue Comadreando with all of you for many more years to come. And with that being said, our topic for today is supporting sleep in children with special needs. And the reason why the topic came up is because a lot of the comadres have reached out to me regarding their children having issues with sleep at one point or another. My son has had issues with sleep at one point or another. Actually, it's more of a seasonal issue, and we'll get into more about why it happens for him around certain times of the year. So getting into the topic, we know that healthy sleep is uber important for both children and parents. It's important to identify the problems early to be able to prevent negative consequences in the long run, such as daytime sleepiness, irritability, behavior problems, and learning difficulties. There have been so many studies conducted on sleep. However, not all of them have been geared towards children with special needs. So there have been a few recent studies that have been published in medical journals regarding the why as to why children on the spectrum specifically have difficulty sleeping. And we're going to get more into that later on. But the studies that were conducted on the prevalence of sleep problems in children with autism, the most recent one was in 2019. It found that nearly 80%, not 18, 80% of preschoolers with autism have disrupted sleep. This suggests sleep problems are twice as common in children with autism as in their neurotypical peers. Actually, they found that Children ages 1 to 4 struggle with nighttime wakings that are not on the spectrum, 25%. So our kids are more than, it's like triple the amount of children on the spectrum suffer from sleep time disturbances as their neurotypical peers. Additionally, they also found that children on the spectrum need an average of 11 minutes longer to fall asleep on average. And a lot of them, even when they are able to get to bed, they wake up frequently during the night. We're going to talk about why that happens, but it's important just to like highlight that, you know. So a lot of the kids that do wake up frequently at night, a lot of them end up sleeping in their parents' bed, and the sleep problems often persist over time. So it starts at an early age, and if nothing is done about it, those sleep problems will continue to get worse and you know, basically snowball as the kids get older. So if you are a comadre or a compadre that has a child with autism who has sleep issues, you are part of my tribe. You are not alone. Rest assured. There are many, many other parents of children on the spectrum that are having issues with sleep. So a lot of the kids on the spectrum have different sleep issues, particularly. And we're going to dig into why, like the science behind it. Why is it that our kids are susceptible to this? And why people with autism have difficulty sleeping in general. So looking at the studies, it says that many people with autism have other conditions such as gastrointestinal problems, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, or anxiety. And each of those conditions on its own, without the pairing of the autism, often disrupt sleep. However, because the autism already has issues with sleep, when your child has those comorbidities, so comorbidity is concurrent, how do I say this? So it's concurrent disabilities or health issues, right? So you can have ADHD and you can have autism, but if you have them together, it'll exacerbate those symptoms of sleep disturbances. So yeah, it's it's tough. Another thing that I read was that the cramps from constipation. A lot of kids on the spectrum have gastrointestinal issues, so they have issues evacuating or having regular bowel movements. So a lot of the time, the cramps from constipation, for instance, can keep a person with autism up at night because they're not able to sleep. I know I suffered at one point from gallstones, and I was not able to sleep through the night. So, and that was like a very crampy sensation. So I can just imagine a child with sensory sensibilities or sensitivities rather, going through that and having a difficult time sleeping. So we have to make sure that we take our children to the doctor, especially for those kind of issues, because, you know, sometimes having them see a nutritionist or somebody that's a GI doctor, gastrointestinal doctor, can actually help in that sense, at least, to help them regulate their system to be able to eliminate more frequently and not have issues with cramping from constipation at night. Another reason that our kids have issues, pardon me. Another reason our kids have issues sleeping is that they suffer from sensory sensitivities, right? Which is also called sensory processing disorder. So these sensitivities to light, sound, or touch can contribute to difficulty sleeping. Sleeping problems can also be an indicator of depression in autistic people, though whether it is a cause or a result of sleep difficulties is unclear as of yet. So we don't know if it's we don't know if it's an issue of the chicken coming before the egg or the egg coming before the chicken. So we don't know whether the depression is because of the sleep difficulties, or because they are depressed, they have issues with sleeping. We know that neurotypical people that suffer from depression also have issues with sleep. So, you know, there's no clear indication whether it is because of that. Another thing we want to know is that people with those other conditions like ADHD, gastrointestinal issues, or anxiety can take medication that affects sleep. For example, a lot of people with ADHD take stimulants. Those stimulants are known to cause insomnia. So that's another thing that is like another strike against our kids and people that actually have autism and ADHD as well. One thing that I found really interesting when I was looking at the research, I've read about 5 articles regarding this, is that they have done genetic studies regarding people on the spectrum and their genetic makeup. So they found that people on the spectrum carry mutations that make them prone to sleep problems. Those studies suggested that individuals with autism are more likely than typical people to have mutation in genes that govern their sleep-wake cycle, or those that have links to insomnia. Some studies suggested that people on the spectrum carry mutations that affect levels of melatonin, which is a natural hormone that controls sleep. I want to note that melatonin is naturally produced in the body. I know when Aiden first started having issues with sleeping, I asked the pediatrician for a supplement that is natural to be able to give to my son. She suggested at the time giving him melatonin. You guys know that my mom is Latina, and our parents really don't believe in taking pills or medications of any kind unless it's like absolutely necessary. So the first resistance and from her and other members of the family was like, what are you giving him? This is something that can be solved naturally, blah, 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 whatever it is. However, the melatonin, the decreased production of melatonin in people with autism cannot be solved without taking the supplement to top them off. So let's say their levels are like dipping in a certain way, the melatonin supplement can help, even them out and help them regulate their sleep cycle in a better way. So, yes, there are things that can make you sleepy, but the melatonin is proven to help you fall asleep faster and also stay asleep for longer periods of time. So yeah, I wanted to note that because I know a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to give my kids drugs. It's not drugs, guys. It's a actual natural, substance that is produced in the body. Our kids just don't produce it as much as neurotypical people. So this is why it's important to make sure we research and see whether they need that, So let's kind of make a little segue about the effects on parents' physical and mental health. As we all know, when our kids don't sleep, we also have issues with sleep, right? There's no way that I'm going to be able to sleep if my kid is going bananas in the other room, crying or carrying on or scripting or, getting up to go play or getting up to watch TV. There's no way that I'm actually going to be able to settle down and have a full night's rest when I know that my child is potentially putting himself in danger in the other room. So I've noticed, and I've spoken about this on the show before, that my mental health declines when I am not receiving enough sleep. And I know that our kids' mental health also declines in that way. So besides our mental health declining, I also feel that, at least personally, when he was having so many issues sleeping, I felt I was failing as a parent, right? I felt that, truthfully, I felt like I was doing something wrong, that my kid wasn't able to sleep through the night. But I feel like as parents, we're very hard on ourselves, and we don't really take into account the other situations that in our lives, or environmental factors, So I'm going to talk about a little bit about the short-term consequences of sleep disruption in our children with regards to us as parents. So one of the things that can happen is one of the things that can happen is so some of the things that can happen is that we can have increased stress responsivity. We can experience somatic pain. We can experience reduced quality of life, emotional distress and mood disorders, cognitive, memory, and performance deficits in the short term. So I remember when he was having sleep issues at the beginning, when he first got diagnosed, that even though I was overweight, the issues with the sleep were affecting me to the point that I was in constant pain, right? I would wake up from sleep in like actual physical pain, right? And I couldn't explain why, because my bed, I had just bought a new mattress, I had gotten new pillows. There was no physical reason why I was having issues with that. It's just that I feel like my body was not getting enough rest. Not only that, but because I was overweight, I also suffered from sleep apnea, which is bad, right? The your cognitive functioning declines, right? You're not as quick on the uptake when you're tired, constantly tired. Also memory, there's things that I remember. I used to call it mommy brain, but honestly, it could have just been a result of not getting enough sleep at the beginning, right? And then performance deficits. I was constantly yawning at work all the time. I was always annoyed. I was working at the bank at the time, so I was like dealing with customers. So it's very different dealing with adults than dealing with children. So I was not little Miss Ray of Sunshine that you know now when I was going through those issues with sleep. If not corrected, there can be long-term consequences to the disruption of sleep. And some of those consequences there can be long-term consequences in the disruption of sleep in otherwise healthy individuals. And that can be hypertension, dyslipidemia, cardiovascular disease, weight-related issues. If you're not sleeping through the night, it doesn't matter how much diet or exercise you do, your body's not going to metabolize that fat and get rid of it. The reason why is that your cortisol levels are at a higher rate, and your body is going to be in constant fight or flight mode, right? Our bodies, because of our ancestry and, we were cave people, right? The way that our body responds to stress is that it'll store fat, right? The same thing happens when people think that when they stop eating, they will lose weight. You may lose some weight, but there's going to be a point that your body's just is not going to lose any weight, and it's going to retain the fat because it thinks that you're out in the wilderness somewhere and you are not eating properly. So what it's going to do is that whatever you eat, even if you drink, water, and you guys can, research this, don't take my word for it, but even if you drink water or have healthy foods, you're going to gain weight from that. And that is probably what is the weight related issue, right? If we're in a stressful situation, we're not sleeping well, we're going to experience weight related issues. Another thing is we can experience metabolic syndrome, right? Another long-term consequence can be type 2 diabetes mellitus. And the most severe one, which really scared me, was colorectal cancer, right? Which is the silent killer. When you have cancer in your colon is very hard to detect. So, we need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves so that these short term don't turn into long term and then in turn affect us as parents. Because, at the end of the day, we need to keep ourselves healthy to be able to take care of our children. If we're not here, nobody's going to be able to take care of them. So, I know I got a little bit dark there, but there are solutions. There are things that we can do and changes in our routines that we can implement that will help our children sleep throughout the night. It does, like everything with our kids, it's going to take some work and consistency on your part. So we can start talking about different types of solutions and the things that I have done to help my child. I want to actually give a shout out to someone I dated. He had a child not on the spectrum, but he had a child that had issues with sleep. And he was able to educate me a lot about things that I can do to help my child sleep better throughout the night. And also, he was kind of like a researcher of sorts. So he would like science the crap out of any topic, which was one of the things that attracted me to him. But with this topic, he had issues with sleep. His son had issues with sleep. So he did a lot of research and he was able to orient me or give me more tools for my toolbox regarding sleep routines. So let's get into that part, right? So part of the solutions, establishing good sleep hygiene is the critical step in helping a child with sleep problems. Sleep hygiene doesn't mean showering your child before bed. It's really in reference to the sleep habits or behaviors necessary for a good night's sleep, and includes avoiding caffeine and going to bed and waking up at the same time every day. So as parents, we need to come up with a kind of schedule for our children when it's bedtime. So the schedule can include, taking a shower or a bath, right? Getting into pajamas, brushing teeth, saying goodnight to loved ones, reading a bedtime story, listening to calming music, right? It should be specifically outlined for your child, and it should be something that shouldn't take anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes. 60 minutes at most, right? And it should start 60 to 30 minutes prior to bedtime as well. It's also recommended that we eliminate foods and drinks containing caffeine at least 6 hours before bed. So there are foods that naturally contain caffeine that I really wasn't aware of. So there's some supplements that contain caffeine, but also chocolate. And I would even add sugars to the list, right? If you can eliminate sugars past a certain time, it'll help you in the long run be able to help your child put their day to rest, right? Sugar, especially like for my kid, he is very sensitive to sugar. So if I give him anything, like if he goes and steals some golden Oreos before bed, or he'll go and like have juice, even if it's fruit juice and it's not soda, because we know already, like from the previous episodes, that Aiden is a little soda monster. And if there's soda in the refrigerator, he's going to continue to drink it until it's gone. He has no chill with regards to, caffeinated beverages, especially soda. Thank God he doesn't drink coffee. But yeah, so eliminating foods and drinks that contain caffeine and sugars at least 6 hours prior to bed, and avoid rigorous activities during the later evening hours. So sometimes we like to do like really fun activities with our kids that rile them up. Don't do it right before bed, because the thing is that it's going to spike your adrenaline. right? And when your adrenaline is spiked, you're not going to be able to get that kid back to sleep. So making sure that you can do a physical activity, but do like a calming physical activity before bed. Uh, Another thing is that, you know, those kinds of, like, if you're going to have your kid exercise, have them exercise when they come back from school, have them exercise 2 to 3 hours before bedtime, right? So that you are not facing that adrenaline spike in the body, and it's gonna, defeat the purpose of doing the bedtime routine. So another thing that I want to suggest, especially for our kids that are anxious, is trying to reduce anxiety before bedtime by giving them a calm activity that's positive for them. That could be anything from reading a book, playing trains, watching TV, anything that's low energy and really calming for them, that is positive, right? And it helps regulate their mood. I want to say something that I actually remember suffering from anxiety as a kid. And this is all like, through my therapy and looking back at the behaviors that I had as a child. I used to worry about literally everything. There was things that I shouldn't have been worrying about as a child. I would be thinking about the next day at school, what I was going to wear, what I was going to eat, what was going to happen at school the next day. Stupid things like, oh, if I had a test the next day, or if it was picture day, like I would literally lose sleep thinking about all these things. So giving our kids tools to manage their anxiety and help them wind the day down is going to help them in the long run as well. I mean, my mom didn't know I suffered from anxiety. I didn't even know I suffered. I didn't know what anxiety was. So definitely, I feel like doing those calming activities before bed will help. Also, like if you can do like breathing or meditation, before bed can help a lot. Visualization exercises. Another thing I want to say is that routine, whatever it is that works for you and your child, you need to have it written down or as a visual schedule. We've talked about this before, about having visuals for our children, and back in the safety and routines episode. Having that schedule there written down is also going to help reduce anxiety, because they know exactly what's going to come next, and it actually empowers them to become more independent in the long run. When you're more independent and you know exactly what's coming up next, it's going to help mitigate that anxiety, and it's going to help you calm the body and the nervous system down. Also, having it written down is going to make sure that the routine is consistently followed. I want to do a sidebar. Most people feel sleepy at night, we know that, and awake during the day. And that's because as the day gets darker, as the sun sets, our body naturally produces melatonin, and it tells our body it's time for sleep. Daylight tells us to wake up. This is our natural circadian rhythm, which helps us all sleep at the right time. So our kids, because they don't have this natural circadian rhythm, another thing that I'm going to suggest, not that they don't have it, it's just it's different than ours. What I'm going to suggest is taking away those devices 2 hours before bed. I know you're looking at me or listening to me and you're like, no, Marcy. Yes, you need to. The reason why is that blue light interrupts our circadian rhythm. It reduces the amount of melatonin that we're producing in our body. And because our kids are especially sensitive to that, it is imperative, it is important. You need to take away those devices at least 2 hours before bed, so that your child has the opportunity, when they're taking the melatonin, to be able to top off and actually get to a normal level before bed. Another thing that the person that I dated suggested was changing the temperature in the room. He did research and he said that the temperature in the room shouldn't be above 65 degrees or something. So it should be relatively cool in the room. Cool environments actually help us sleep better. It might be very chilly if you get out of the bed, but as long as you have blankets and quilts on the bed, you should be fine. But definitely having like a cooler environment and changing the lighting in the bedroom will help tremendously. So once you take away these devices from your child, even if they're just watching TV, make sure that the lights are down, that you get night lights for the room, or you turn on a lamp instead of having the overhead light on. That'll help, get their body in general ready for bed. It'll help wind them down. Another thing I wanted to say regarding the lighting in the bedroom, besides using the like changing, turning off the lights, another thing that I would suggest, which has been a game changer for us, is buying those blackout curtains. Like, I went to Bed Bath and Beyond and I did spend like $20, $25 on one panel of a blackout curtain. However, this was a game changer. I want to say this was like the best $25 I ever spent. The blackout curtain literally creates an environment of like complete darkness in the room. I don't know if you guys have, a lot of the comadres live in the city, a lot of them don't. However, I don't know if you guys have ever, the people that live in the city, if you've ever visited the suburbs, you know that there's a difference of environmental light in the suburbs at night. So it basically creates that kind of environment for you in your room here in the city. So using the blackout curtains have been a complete game changer because it takes away that extra light. A lot of the time I would find that before I had that, Aiden would wake up because there was like a crack of light coming in, especially because my apartment it faces the street. So the street lights come in. Not only do the street lights come in, but also the light not in the lobby, in front of the building. Those lights in front of the building come in through our window at different times at night. So, the blackout curtains help eliminate that extra light, which used to attract Aiden to the point that he would get up out of bed to open the curtain to look outside. Now we don't have issues with that anymore. And as with anything, when you're implementing these routines, it's just like, when you're teaching your child a new activity or a replacement behavior, we need a lot of positive reinforcements. You're going to need a high rate of positive reinforcement following the routine. So eventually you're going to have to consider giving your kid positive reinforcement the following morning if they are successful in following the nighttime activity schedule and they stay in bed throughout the night. Those reinforcements can be anything from earning access to a favorite breakfast cereal, a preferred toy, getting a sticker to put on a special chart when they wake up, a preferred activity, anything like that that's going to really motivate them. And you know your child best. You know the things that will absolutely have them doing these things for you immediately. So think about what you can reward them with for actually accomplishing staying in bed, following the routine, and, sleeping throughout the night. So because our kids don't interpret the sleep cycle that way, right? Their bodies don't interpret it that way, and they struggle to regulate day and night sleep. they can't naturally stay asleep at night. So this is why they have the frequent waking up at night, that it feels impossible for us to help them using traditional sleep methods, right? One thing that I did read, one of the people that is now a sleep specialist, she has a child on the spectrum. That was one of the articles that I read. I'm actually going to link all the articles that I read below in the show notes. She was saying that there was people that when she was researching how to help her children sleep, she came up with a gentle sleep method, which is some of the things that I'm going to be highlighting next. However, some of the suggestions people said were like, cry it out. And I want to advise against that, because the cry it out method doesn't necessarily work for children on the spectrum. You can actually end up traumatizing your child. There's a way to kind of quote unquote cry it out, but not really. So we're going to talk about how that works going forward. But I wanted to talk about some of the sleep disorders, right? These are medical ones, though, that need to be diagnosed by an actual sleep specialist. And these are diagnosed through studies, right? You take your child for a sleep study, and they can be diagnosed with obstructive sleep apnea or periodic limb movement disorder. So like restless leg syndrome, which is something that I've never suffered from. But these are conditions that are actually treatable, right? But they require you seeing your pediatrician and working with a sleep specialist to be able to get lab work and a sleep study for a full proper diagnosis. Since these conditions are often overlooked and can cause poor sleep in our kids, it's important to consult a medical professional, if like you haven't had success working on sleep habits. So if you've been implementing all these things, right, you have a sleep routine, you have good sleep hygiene, you're doing all these things, and it's been 2 weeks and you see no improvement in your child, then I would suggest going to your pediatrician and having a serious conversation regarding the sleep issues. Yeah, definitely consult a medical professional. Another thing that they noted in the articles that I read is that the quality of sleep can actually trigger certain features of your child's condition, right? So some things that can worsen because of lack of sleep are things like repetitive behaviors. So if your child likes to script, if your child does echolalic speech, if your child likes to line things up, if they like to watch certain videos over and over again. I feel like it's something that they're doing to self-soothe, but because they're not comfortable, they're doing it more just to help them cope. But the thing is, it turns into a never-ending cycle, right? Because like, let's say Aiden does a lot of echolalic speech, it makes his sleeping more difficult. So he's already tired, but then he's scripting or doing echolalic speech, and it's not helping him fall asleep because he's talking, and this is stimulating his brain. So it's just like a never-ending cycle. And it creates like a disruptive feedback loop. And one of the other studies, which was really interesting to me, was it said that in the sleep studies that they had conducted on children with autism, they found that about 15% of their time sleeping is spent in REM stage, which is rapid eye movement. This stage of sleep is critical for learning and retaining memories. So only 15% of the sleep is in the REM stage for children on the spectrum, versus their neurotypical peers, which by contrast spend about 23% of their nightly rest in the REM stage, in the rapid eye movement stage. So that's like an 8% difference, which is huge. Like, they're not getting the same quality or amount of sleep as their peers. So, us getting them to sleep on time and helping them with sleep routines is just going to improve them overall. Another study from 2009 found that children with autism who have sleep difficulties are more hyperactive and easily distracted than those who sleep well. I know as a teacher and as a mom, when the children are not getting enough sleep, it is severely noticeable in the classroom. Severely noticeable. Besides them being irritable or, having a little attitude or not wanting to participate, I notice the kids that have ADHD are like wired. And I feel like it's a reaction because your body is tired. It just kind of, it's an odd reaction because you would think that the energy would go down. It does not. It just has them really in a spot that they're like literally all over the place. Like they can't really focus. And it's all due to sleep, which is, I am a sleep advocate. I am part of the nap ministry. If you need to take a nap, you need to take a nap, right? However, this is something like I'm passionate about. I really enjoy my sleep and I love when my kid sleeps well because I see the difference in him the next day when he's like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. He wakes up on his own. I don't have to fight with him in the morning. It just like makes our lives better in the long run. So, as parents, our ultimate goal is to get our kids to sleep through the night in their own beds. So, creating that sleep routine, the short, consistent, reproducible sleep routine that happens every night before bed can improve the chances that our kids are going to fall asleep quickly. So remember, I'm just going to go over some of the things that we can include in that sleep routine. We can take a bath or a shower, put on pajamas, brush teeth, read from a book, or listen to some music, right? Calming music, not like, party music. The bedtime routine should take place outside of the bed. So if you're reading the book, you should be reading the book outside of the bed. And the only reason why I'm pointing that out is that another suggestion from one of the articles, it said that our bed should be for sleep only. I'm going to read exactly what it says. It says, sleep in your bed only and use your bed only for sleep. So there should be no other activities happening in the bed so that your child is associating already that my bed means it's time to go to sleep. It's not playtime. It's not party time. It's time for sleep. So yeah. So another thing that I wanted to mention is that, well, I already mentioned this, but the blue light in electronic devices, even if they have the night filter, you know how your phone, like at least iPhones, and I know smartphones in general, go into like night mode. So it'll like put a filter on the screen. Even with the filter, it still interrupts how much melatonin is produced in the body. So make sure that you're not letting them use those devices at least 2 hours before bed. Another thing that people have been researching into, which was of something that kept coming up, was using CBD to help, regulate the body and calm them down to be able to get ready for bed. However, even though it is a fast-growing option, before giving it to your child, make sure to consult with your pediatrician. Also, I would suggest any of these supplements that you're going to try with your child, if it's the first time, make sure you try it on yourself. You want to know exactly what the reaction is going to be and what your child is going to feel like. So I definitely did try the melatonin and I did try the CBD before giving it to Aiden, after I consulted first with the pediatrician to get the okay. And once I got the okay with regards to timing, quantity, and frequency, I was able to, try it out on myself first and then start giving it to Aiden in that way. So there was a question that I thought like stood out to me, and it's gonna harbor on another part of another topic for another day, but I do want to mention it. And the question was, would better sleep improve the quality of life for many people on the spectrum? And the answer was maybe, right? No large definitive study exists on that topic, but research has shown that typical children and those with autism who undergo surgery to alleviate the breathing because of the sleep apnea show better social communication and attention, as well as fewer repetitive behaviors. So those kids that have better sleep because they're doing these routines and have had, let's say, unfortunately, let's say they had the sleep apnea that's because of a malformation in the nose or like the breathing passages. Once they get that operation, they show significant improvement in social communication and attention, and they have less repetitive behaviors. But I do want to reiterate that better sleep is not going to cure autism. I'm going to say it again for the people in the back. Better sleep is not going to cure autism. One thing that irks my nerves, there's a lot of people out here selling dreams to parents, selling these systems, quote unquote, telling parents that they're going to cure their kids' autism. First of all, autism is not a virus. It is a disability. And actually, disability is not a bad word, but let's call it a super ability. It's just a way that our children think that is different than other people, right? A lot of people, especially this is ableist culture, that want to make our children feel like they're less than because their brains function in a different way. That's number one. Number two, there is no cure for autism. Like I said, it's not a virus. You can do things to alleviate the symptoms and improve your child's communication, improve your child's, social expression, improve your child, the way that they learn, through all these therapies and things that you can do. You can change your diet as well, right? But there's no cure for autism. So the people that are claiming that they have cured their child's autism, quote unquote, I have a lot of things to say to those people. And actually, if you know somebody, I would love to have them on my show, because I feel like the people that do the same things and that doesn't happen for their child, then that makes that parent feel like they're not doing enough for their child, which is already something that we battle with. But having somebody out here talking about, oh, I cured my child's autism, no, get out of here with that. Okay, I'm gonna get off. I'm gonna get off my soapbox. I apologize. So there was a pediatrician, Dr. Angela Maxwell Horn. She's also an assistant professor of pediatrics at Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee. She said that children with autism who get back on a regular sleeping schedule seem to learn better and are less irritable and have fewer problem behaviors, which is exactly what I was talking about before in the classroom, right? I see that the kids that have issues sleeping, when they start sleeping better, their performance in class improves significantly. Their mood improves significantly and everything else as well. As an adult who is neurotypical, when I am sleeping through the night and I'm getting enough rest, everything improves significantly for me as well. So there was this one thing I was reading about that I wanted to share also. There was like 2 sleep onset association disorders. So the first one is a condition in which a child associates falling asleep with something in the environment or with a person. So this is when those children are really attached to having mommy in the bed or a specific thing to be able to sleep in the environment, right? This could include, for example, being held or rocked or eating or drinking before bed. It's easy to find yourself lying down with children who don't want to fall asleep on their own, say they are scared, or climb into your bed. Sleep associations can lead to children waking up because they have moments throughout the night that they check their environment to determine if the circumstances when they fell asleep are still the same. If you let children fall asleep in your bed, cuddle with them, or rub their back until they drift off, this can be perceived as different, and they will wake up and look for the same comfort to fall back asleep. So, us loving parents and loving mothers can actually be our worst enemies with regards to sleep routines, because the thing is that this can encourage the behavior, right? So you're giving the kid a reward, and this can happen throughout the night. It can cause the kids to wake up multiple times in the evening. So another thing that we can teach them is to self-soothe at bedtime. That's going to lead to a restful night's sleep for you without having them wake up multiple times during the night. One thing that happened when I split from Aiden's dad is that Aiden was sick. He was running a fever. We had a huge argument. He moved out. And that night, I brought him into my bed. Up until that point, Aiden was already sleeping in the toddler. Was it a toddler bed? No, he was in his crib. He was in his crib, and up until that point, he was sleeping in his crib consistently. We had no issues. He was not sleeping in our bed at all. Then the whole thing happened. I was feeling vulnerable. He was not feeling well. I brought him into my bed. It took me so many years to get him out of my bed. And even buying him his own beautiful, captain toddler bed with the beautiful sheets and the pillows and everything, Aiden still preferred to sleep in my bed. So there was a point that I had 2 beds in my house. Nobody was sleeping on the second bed. It was just me and Aiden in my bed all the time. What I ended up doing to convince him to sleep in his own bed was that I bought a new mattress for myself and I gave him my old bed. So Aiden was sleeping on a queen size bed at the age of 6, which is not advisable, but hey, it worked for us. So that, and I gave him even like all the bedding and all the pillows just to make it feel like I was still in the bed with him. So we started transitioning from him sleeping in my bed. Now he had my quote unquote my bed in his room, and all the furnishings, and then we were doing the sleep routine, and that helped him get out of that sleep onset association disorder. Another thing that I read about, which was interesting, was the limit setting subtype. So what they call the Jack-in-the-Box syndrome. And that it involves refusal to go to bed and repeated requests to delay bedtime. So this looks like, I'm not tired. I wanna drink some water. Can I have some juice? Can I go to the bathroom? No, because tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. Or they'll start talking about their day, or they'll ask for another story, anything like that. To get out of bed are examples of this Jack-in-the-Box behavior, right? So parents constantly returning their children to bed and watching them get out again. So those are 2 issues that I've seen run the gamut, right, between our kids. And not only our kids on the spectrum, this is like for all children, especially toddlers. So our question now is like, what do you do if you do the entire routine and your kid still engages in the problem behavior? So like, what now, Sherlock? So there's clinical ways. It's called escape extinction, but I'm going to explain it to you in non-scientific ways. So basically, us changing the routines doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be successful treatment of the sleep disturbances. Our choice of what we do depends on how and when the sleep disturbances occur. So in situations where our kids have difficulty falling asleep or wakes up multiple times during the night, an escape extinction procedure should be used, which involves preventing or removing access to the reinforcement. So if your child is suffering from that sleep onset association disorder, which is that they wake up multiple times during the night to just double check that even if you put them in the bed, right, and you like sneak off to go to your room, if they're waking up multiple times during the night, then you need to put your child back to bed with as minimal discussion as possible. You should not be talking, because the talking is actually gonna, reinforce the behavior. So you're implementing the nightly sleep routine and you're ending it with placing your child in the bed and you're leaving the room. Every time your kid wakes up and tries to leave the room, you're going to redirect your kid back to the bed with minimal discussion or interaction. It should be repeated until the child stays in bed on his or her own and falls asleep. It's easier said than done. I understand. So just bear with me, right? As you're getting them accommodated to the sleep routine, once you're done and you put them in the bed, there should be, besides saying goodnight, there should be no more discussion. They say that the key steps for this escape extinction routine is that you need to stay silent, remain calm, and use reinforcement in the morning when the child falls asleep on their own in their own bed. The graduated escape extinction. So this is when your child is engaging in tantrum behavior at night. So it's very similar to the escape extinction procedure. However, the graduated procedure starts by putting the child to bed and leaving the room. When the crying or tantrum behavior occurs, the parent will wait a designated amount of time before going back into the child's bedroom. The latency, so the delay in the response, will systematically increase until your child finally falls asleep before you enter the room. This is I feel like this is like a better option to the cry it out method, because the cry it out method, there's kids that have no chill. They will cry the whole night until they're hoarse. So this is kind of similar to the cry it out method in a way, but it's a little bit more graduated because you are going in to check on them just to let them know that they're okay, but then you're still leaving the room. You're not giving into the tantrum, right? Or the meltdown rather. Some other things that I wanted to suggest is that for me, this is experiential data. This wasn't really talked about in the articles that I read. However, stopping the napping past 5 p.m. was essential. Okay? The napping, because the thing is, I had him with a lady. This is before the person that takes care of him now. I had him with somebody that was getting him off the school bus and bringing him home, and then he would be tired, and they'd be like, "Oh, sí, duérmete, go to sleep," right? And then who ends up getting screwed in the end? Me, because he would not want to go to sleep at his designated bedtime because he was already rested up until a certain point. So those bedtimes when he would take naps after 5 o'clock would end up, instead of going to bed at 9 or 8:30, Aiden would be in bed at midnight, okay? And that is also bad because even though he's rested, right? He's sleeping from 12 to 6 a.m. I am not getting the amount of sleep that I needed to get. So this is where we run into a problem, right? Even though he's rested, right? He had a little nap, and then he's going to bed at 12 midnight, and then the next day he's waking up all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I'm not getting the amount of sleep that I'm supposed to get, right? So make sure those naps are cut down. 5 o'clock is the maximum, especially if you have an 8:30 bedtime. No naps after 5. Again, cutting out the soda and the caffeine, chocolate. There's foods that have caffeine. Make sure you research them and cut them out of your child's diet at least 6 hours before bed. I want to tell you something. We don't buy soda in this house, right? One day I had people over and it was a party. I don't remember if it was a birthday party or what. the case was that I bought soda. Aiden must have been 4 years old or 5 year old. Aiden is so smart that homie waited, pretended that he was sleeping. He waited until I was knocked out. And at the time I had sleep apnea, right? Until I was knocked out, he woke up, tiptoed to the kitchen, and drank the rest of the soda. Needless to say, I think I woke up like around 3 in the morning to use the restroom. He was literally having a conversation, scripting a conversation to himself and laughing and carrying on at that time in the night. So let me tell you, please don't be that parent. Like, get the soda away or the juice. Again, I'm going to link the blackout curtains. I get mine from Bed Bath & Beyond and from Marshalls, but Amazon has everything. I actually have some that I bought for my mom on my Amazon storefront, so I'll link that in the show notes as well. Another thing I wanted to mention is the essential oil diffuser. I remember when he was a baby, I used to bathe him with the Johnson & Johnson, which is probably not good because there's research about chemicals in that produce cancer-causing agents. Do your own research. I'm not going to tell you yes or no, don't use it. But I remember I used to use the Johnson & Johnson sleepy time stuff to bathe him at night. So I would use the lavender and it would help relax him. And then I would do, he was very small, so I used to do infant massage on him. So I took a class when I was working for when I used to work for Early Head Start, that taught me infant massage. So I would massage him and oil him up and get him really comfy for bed beforehand. This was before he got diagnosed. But now that he's bigger, yes, we do take a shower. He doesn't really particularly enjoy lavender scented body wash. So what I do is that I use an essential oil diffuser, and I actually bought a sleepy time blend and the lavender as well. So I put a few drops in the oil diffuser, and that helps kind of set the mood and set the tone in the bedroom. One thing I did notice for Aiden is that the sleep disruptions increase, especially when we have seasonal changes. So whenever the seasons change, that we're going from summer to fall, fall to winter, and so on, I noticed that Aiden has issues with sleep. So because I've been observing his behavior for a long run, I already know that at a certain time in the year, I'm going to be using the melatonin, which I've cut out a little bit because I saw a couple of articles regarding people ODing, giving their kids too much melatonin. I don't know what a melatonin overdose looks like. However, as parents, we are trying to protect our children. So I don't give him the melatonin all the time because he doesn't have issues. But when I see that he's giving me a hard time for bed, or, he's not necessarily falling asleep and staying asleep, that's when I start using the melatonin again. Remember, it's up to your discretion. Always consult your pediatrician or your developmental pediatrician regarding that. Another thing is, the music. You can alternate between calming music or singing lullabies, right? Aiden doesn't like lullaby music anymore, so we do a lot of the Disney songs. When some of our favorites are the Encanto songs, and Moana is a big. He's a very big fan of Moana, especially the song from The Rock, You're Welcome. So, things like that can help. I know it sounds simplistic, but creating a good sleep routine and good sleep hygiene in your children is just going to better you as a parent. You're going to be rested. They're going to be well rested. They're going to be working at their optimal, and you will be too. So this is our sleep episode, So with that, we're going to be ending the episode. I wanted to announce a comadre get together. Put your save the dates in the calendar for January 6th, which is Three Kings Day. We will be having some kind of get together. I am in the process of planning it. So please make sure that you guys are saving the date and that, the comadres that were not able to make it to the 1 year anniversary happy hour are able to make it out to this. I'll make sure that I make it on the weekend and that, we are able to get together and that I give you enough time in advance that you're able to secure a sitter. Wait, before I end the episode, I want to say that it's important to have everyone that works with your child on the same page regarding diet and regarding naps, because it is counterintuitive to have yourself laying down the law, following these routines for sleep, and then having somebody that's taking care of them, whether it be your mother, your aunt, whoever is taking care of your child, being nice and letting them take naps or giving them soda or giving them sugar or giving them juice in the later hours of the evening before you pick them up. That is completely counterintuitive. Make sure that you're having a meeting with everybody and that everybody's on the same page. And then give them tips. Like if your kid is falling asleep, give them tips on how to keep them awake and give them like an activity that's going to stimulate your child as opposed to like relax them. Okay. And with that, this is really the end of the episode. As always, I'm going to end it how I always end it, which is follow me at Comadreando Pod on Instagram. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to send me a Comadre-Gram via email at Marcy at comadreandopod.com or slide up into my DMs. Comadres, don't forget to grab your official Comadreando gear on Etsy or on our website, which is www.comadreandopod.com. Any help financial that you would like to provide would be appreciated, and you can find those ways to contribute at the bottom of the show notes. And with that being said, thank you for spending an evening with your comadre, and thank you for your listenership again. Bye.